Welcome to Story Quest. Today, I will be reading Little Woman, Chapter 28, Part 2. He meant it to be a good-natured joke, but that one word sealed his fate. Meg thought it was too cruel to hint about her sad future, and the last atom of patience vanished as she spoke. You must get yourself out of the scrap as you can. I'm too used up to exert myself for anyone. It's like a man to propose a bone and vulgar bread and cheese for company. I won't have anything of the sort in my house. Take that Scott up to Mother's and tell him I'm away, sick, dead, anything. I won't see him, and you two can laugh at me and my jelly as much as you like. You won't have anything else here, and having delivered her defiance all at one breath, Meg cast away her pinafore and left the field to bemoan herself in her own room. What these two creatures did in her absence, she never knew, but Mr. Scott was not taken up to Mother's, and when Meg descended after they had strolled away together, she found traces of promiscuous lunch, which filled her with horror. Lottie reported that they had eaten much. It greatly laughed, and the master bade her throw away all the sweet stuff and hide the pots. Meg longed to go and tell Mother, but a sense of shame at her own shortcomings of loyalty to John, who might be cruel, but nobody should know it, restrained her and left a summary cleaning up. She dressed herself prettily and sat down to wait for John to come and be forgiven. Unfortunately, John didn't come. Not seeing the matter in the light, he had carried it off as a good joke with Scott, excused his little wife as well as he could, and played the host too so hospitably that his friend enjoyed the impromptu dinner and promised to come again. But John was angry, though he did not show it. He felt that Meg had deserted him in his hour of need. It wasn't fair to tell a man to bring folks home any time with perfect freedom, and when you took you at your word to flame up and blame him and leave him in the lurch to be laughed at or pitied. No, by George, it wasn't, and Meg must know it. He had fumed inwardly during the feast, but when the flurry was over, he strolled home after seeing Scott off. A milder mood came over him. Poor little thing. It was hard upon her when she tried so heartily to please me. She was wrong, of course, but then she was young. I must be patient and teach her. He hoped she had not gone home. He hated gossip and interference. For a minute, he was ruffled again at the mere thought of it, and then the fear that Meg would cry herself sick softened his heart and set him on a quicker pace, resolving to be calm and kind, but firm, quite firm, and show her where she had failed in her duty to her spouse. Meg likewise resolved to be calm and kind, but firm, and show him his duty. She longed to run to meet him and beg pardon and be kissed and comforted, as she was sure of being, but of course she did nothing of the sort, and when John was coming, began to hum quite naturally as she rocked and sewed like a little lady of leisure in her best parlor. John was a little disappointed not to find tender Niobe, but feeling that his dignity demanded the first apology, he made none, only came leisurely in, laid himself upon the sofa with a singularly relevant remark. "We're going to have a new moon, my dear." "I have no objection," was Meg's equally soothing remark, as few other topics of general interest were introduced by Mr. Brooke and wet-blanketed by Mrs. Brooke, and conversation languished. John went to one window, unfolded his paper, and wrapped himself in it. Figuratively speaking, Meg went to the other window and sewed, if new, rosettes for slippers were among the necessities of life. Neither spoke, both looked quiet, calm and firm, and both felt desperately uncomfortable. Oh dear, thought Meg, married life is very trying and does need infinite patience as well as love, as Mother says. The word mother suggested other maternal counsels given long ago and received with unbelievable protest. John is a good man, but he has his fault, and you must learn to see and bear with him. Remembering your own, he is very decided, but never will be obstinate. If you reason kindly, not opposely and patiently, he is very accurate, and particularly about the truth, a good trait. Though you call him fussy, never deceive him by look or word, Meg, and he will give you the confidence you deserve, the support you need. He has a temper, not like ours, one flashed and then all over, but the white, still anger that is seldom stirred, but once kindled is hard to quench. Be careful, be very careful, not to wake his anger against yourself, for peace and happiness depend on keeping his respect. Watch yourself, be the first to ask pardon if you both err, and guard against the little pig's understandings and hasty words that often pave the way for bitter sorrow and regret. These words came back to Meg as she sat sewing in the sunset, especially the last. This was their first serious disagreement. By her own hasty speeches sounded both silly and unkind as she recalled them. Her own anger looked childish now, and thoughts of poor John coming home to such a scene quite melted her heart. She glanced at him with tears in her eyes, but he did not see them. She put down her work and got up, thinking, I will be the first to say forgive me. But he did not seem to hear her. She went very slowly across the room, for pride was hard to swallow, and stood by him, but he did not turn his head. For a minute she felt as if she really couldn't do it. Then came the thought, this is the beginning. I'll do my part, and have nothing to reproach myself with. And stooping down, she softly kissed her husband on the forehead. Of course, that settled it. The penitent kiss was better than a world of words, and Jed had her on his knee in a minute, saying tenderly, I too was bad to laugh at the poor little jelly pots. Forgive me, dear, I will never again. But he did, oh bless you, yes, hundreds of times, and so did Meg, both declaring it was the sweetest jelly they ever made. For family peace was preserved in that little family jar. which on occasion she was so happy and gracious and made everything go off so charmingly that Mr. Scott told John he was a lucky fellow and shook his head over the hardships of bachelorhood all the way home. In the autumn, new trails and experiences came to Meg. Sally Moffat renewed her friendship, was always running out for a dish of gossip at the little house, or inviting that poor dear to come in and spend the day at the big house. It was pleasant, for in dull weather, Meg often felt lonely. All were busy at home, John absent till night, and nothing to do but sew or read or potter about. So naturally fell out that Meg got into the way of gadding and gossiping with her friend. Seeing Sally's pretty things made her long for such, and pitied herself because she had not gotten them. Sally was very kind and often offered her the coveted trifles, but Meg declined them, knowing that John wouldn't like it. And then this foolish little woman went and did what John disliked even worse. She knew her husband's income, and she loved to feel that he trusted her, not only with his happiness, but what some men seem to value more, his money. She knew where it was free to take what she liked, and all he asked was that she keep account of every penny, pay bills once a month, and remember that she was a poor man's wife. Till now, she had done well, been prudent and exact, kept her little account books neatly, and showed them to him monthly without fear. But that autumn, the serpent got into Meg's paradise and tempted her like many a modern Eve, not with apples, but with a dress. Meg didn't like to be pitied, and made to feel poor. It irritated her, but she was ashamed to confess it. And now then she tried to console herself by buying something pretty, so that Sally didn't think she had to economize. She always felt wicked after it, for the pretty things were seldom necessary. But then they cost so little, it wasn't worth worrying about, so the trifles increased unconsciously, and in the shopping excursions, she was no longer a passive looker-on, but the trifles cost more than one would imagine, and when she cast upon her accounts at the end of the month, the sum total rather scared her. John was busy that month and left the bills to her. The next month, he was absent, but the third, he had a grand quarterly settling up, and Meg never forgot it. A few days before she had done a dreadful thing, it weighed upon her conscience. Sally had been buying silks, and Meg longed for a new one, just a handsome light one for parties. Her black silk was so common, and things for evening wear were only proper for girls. Aunt March usually gave the sisters a present of $25 apiece for New Year's. That was only a month to wait. And here was a lovely violet silk, going at a bargain, and she had the money, if only she dared to take it. John always said what was his was hers, but would he think it was right to spend not only the prospective 25, but another 5 and 20 out of the household fund? That was the question. Sally had urged her to do it, had offered to lend the money, and with the best intentions in life, had tempted Meg beyond her strength. In the evil moment of the shopman held up the lovely shimmering folds a bargain as to you, ma'am. She answered, I'll take it, and was cut off and paid for. As Sally had exulted, as she had laughed as if it were a thing of no conscience, and driven away, feeling as if she'd stolen something the police were after her. When she got home, she tried to assuage the pangs of remorse by spreading forth the lovely silk, but it looked less silvery now. Didn't become her, after all. The words $50 seemed stamped like a pattern down each breath. She put it away, but it haunted her, not delightfully, as a new dress should, but dreadfully, like the ghost of a folly that was not easily laid. When Jen got out his book that night, Meg's heart sank. For the first time in her married life, she was afraid of her husband. The kind brown eyes looked as if they could be stern, and though he was unusually merry, she fancied he had found her out, but didn't mean to let her know it. The house bills were all paid, the books all in order. John praised her, and was undoing the old pocketbook, which they called the bank, when Meg, knowing that it was quite empty, stopped his hand, saying nervously, You haven't seen my private expense book yet. John never asked to see it, but she always insisted on his doing so, and used to enjoy his masculine amazement at the weird things women wanted. It made him guess what piping was, demand fiercely the meaning of a hug me tight, or wonder how a little thing composed of 3 rosebuds, a bit of velvet, and a pair of strings could possibly be upon it. It cost $6. That night he looked as if he would like the fun of quizzing her figures and pretending to be horrified at her extravagance, as he often did, but particularly proud of his prudent wife. The little book was brought slowly out and laid down before him. Mike got behind his chair, under pretense of soothing the wrinkles out of his tired forehead, and standing there, she said with her panic increasing with every word, John dear, I'm ashamed to show you my book, for I've really been dreadfully extravagant lately. I go about so much, I must have things, you know. And Sally advised me getting to it, so I did, and my New Year's money will be partly paid for it, but I was so sorry after I'd done it, for I know you think it wrong in me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and comment down below. And if you have not done so already, please check out my second channel and podcast called Viva Quest. The links are in the description box below.